Hello and welcome to 106.2 FM IDC International Radio. This is Counter-Terrorism Today. I'm Itai Hanman in a joint collaboration with IDC Radio and the ICT. We bring you Counter-Terrorism Today. Welcome to all of our Facebook Live viewers, and welcome to all our listeners on all the different platforms that this show is being broadcast right now. Today we have a very special episode for everybody. It is about the Gaza situation, and we have quite the contingent of guests with us to speak about the Gaza security situation. First up here in studio with us is Dr. Anan Wahabi, an ICT researcher and research fellow. He is a former and colonel reserves in the IDF, having served in the paratroopers and in the intelligence corps. We also have in studio with us Colonel Reserves Avi Eliyahu, associate at the ICT and former Southern Command Chief Intelligence Officer for the IDF. On the line with us we have member of Knesset Kasina Svetlova from the Zionist Union. She has been a member of the Knesset since 2015, a member of the Immigration, Absorption and Diaspora Committee, as well as an alternate member for the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee. On the line from the United States, we have Dr. Jonathan Chasner with us, Senior Vice President of Research at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, the FDD in Washington. He's also the author of multiple books, including Hamas versus Fatah, The Struggle for Palestine. Welcome to all of our guests, and thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Hi, and thank you so much. We appreciate it. We're going to start things off here with our roundtable discussion. Going back a little bit, about 9 months ago, started the Gaza riots, if you will. The March of Return is what Hamas has called it. On March 30th, 2018, began those border skirmishes. We have seen quite a bit of incendiary bombs sent over via kites and other mechanisms into Israel, burning over 1,200 hectares of land. We have also seen the burning of tires and other different devices that have created a smog, created air quality problems for the residents of the south of Israel, and a flare-up that happened back in early November, on November 12th, and we saw a contingent of 460 rockets fired from Gaza into Israel. That is a little bit of background of the situation that we are at right now. We're going to start off with you, Knesset member Svetlova. Wanted to ask you, right now, we have seen the poll that was conducted where 74% of Israelis were unhappy with the Prime Minister's handling of the latest crisis. If this is how the public feels, how should have the government reacted to the situation?
Well, yes, thank you for that. Thank you, first of all, for the platform and for the opportunity to participate in this roundtable. Well, I do believe that what we are seeing in the last 9 months, it's nothing more than at the top of the iceberg. However, the whole iceberg, if you may say, it all starts in summer of 2014, and these are the seeds of the evil are being sown at this moment. So it's not only the handling of Hamas in the last 9 months, but everything that happened before that, the ending of the last war in Gaza, which had to be over and start a different period in relations between Israel and Hamas. But in fact, what happened after the rockets stopped falling on the Israel territory and after Israel stopped bombing Hamas, it was more of the same. There was no new solution that was offered by the Israeli government. There was no promotion of the some kind of a solution that would bring Hamas to a different position of less power and less possibility of manipulation of the Israeli security. And this is actually where the problem lies, in my opinion. So the government had to do what it had to do in this situation because it declined to go for a broader solution in Gaza in 2014 with the help of the UN, with the help of the international community. And it did not insist on disarming Hamas at that time in 2014. And here we are today in end of 2018. Hamas is ruling the ball and basically dictates the conditions for Israel and its government.
Dr. Jasner, I wanted to ask you a quick question about the situation as a member of Knesset Svetlova brought up the negotiations with other entities to try to bring a halt to violence inside of Gaza. And something that has been recent is the Qatar involvement inside of the situation with Gaza. We have seen that they have delivered petrol to Gaza through Israel, and they have also delivered $15 million in two separate transfers, so a total of $30 million now. What does that mean for Gaza as an entity when you see that the PA and their reaction is quite incredulous to Qatar being involved in this?
Well, you're pointing to a dynamic that is it's certainly not new. This has been a dynamic that's gone on for the better part of a decade now, and that is that the Palestinian Authority under Mahmoud Abbas would actually like to see Gaza fail. And the crisis that we see inside the Gaza Strip is as much prompted by the Palestinian Authority's inability or unwillingness to work with Hamas as it is about the Israeli blockade or even the Egyptian decision to close the border on most days. The Qatari role is a very interesting one. On the one hand, they have been lauded as the country that is trying to stave off a full-blown crisis, that they're trying to prevent the escalation of violence. On the other hand, by providing assistance, by providing money and other goods to the Gaza Strip, what they're effectively also doing is normalizing the Hamas leadership. And this is, of course, the traditional role of the Qataris. They are the world's foremost supporter of the Muslim Brotherhood movement, perhaps along with the country of Turkey. They would like to see Hamas effectively become the rulers of both of the Palestinian territories. This is, of course, something that the Israelis are steadfastly opposed to, but yet they have this uneasy relationship where they're willing to work together to prevent additional violence in Gaza. So the Israeli policy is one that is incredibly nuanced, more nuanced than I think many people give Israel credit for. But there is a question of how long this can last before Qatar and Israel really begin to disagree on the fundamentals in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, the fundamentals in the Gaza Strip and the way the PA reacts has got a lot of political decisions behind everything there. And I'll open up the floor to everyone. We'll start with you, Colonel Reserve Eliyahu. When we look at what's going on right now with Gaza and over the last 9 months with the incendiary fires that have burned 1,200 hectares, the immense amount of black smoke that has entered the south and created a really suffering for the people of the south, and it's sort of even a new form of terrorism that we have come to understand now. How should Israel deal with this new form when rules of engagement prevent necessarily lethal force, but at the same time, the Israeli soldiers and civilians are facing lethal force?
First of all, please let me add something about Qatar. I think Qatar is one of the main issues here when we talk about Gaza Strip. There are four reasons why, in a Israeli perspective, Qatar is a very important mediator in the arena of Gaza Strip. First of all, they have money, okay? So they can allocate some money to Gaza Strip, and what Gaza Strip needs right now is money, okay? Someone who can support, okay, the basic needs of the population, okay? While the government, okay, the Hamas government cannot supply them anything, okay? Someone from outside needs to bring the supply, and most of the supply is raw materials, basic needs, and money. So Qatar has a perfect role in the game of allocating a budget to Gaza Strip. That's first. Second, Qatar became a more moderate country. Okay, in the past they support the Muslim Brothers and terror organizations. We know it. Okay, but after the blame of the Gulf countries against and the campaign of the Gulf countries against Qatar, they became more and more moderate. Okay, and in the Israeli perspective, it's a great idea. Third, this is another Gulf country that engaged with Israel. Okay, and this is strategic objective of the Israeli government. Okay, to negotiate, okay, with another Arab and Gulf countries, except Saudi and etc. And second, we need some balance, because the only mediator we had till the last few years, between us and Gaza Strip was the Egyptian. And I think in the game, okay, between Hamas movement, the PLO, Israel and the Egyptian, okay, we need another mediator, and the Qatar is a great player in the game, okay, in my perspective. So to add from what already we discussed, I think in the Israeli point of view, we need to continue, okay, the relationship with Qatar. We need to bring more and more budget if they agree to support the Gaza Strip, and to give them more and more space, okay, in the Gaza Strip theater. Regarding the demonstrations we face along the fence, I think the first Israeli military interest is to calm the situation, okay? We understand it's the suffer of the population along the fence, okay? I've been there, I know what they feel, and I visit them frequently, okay? So I understand the feelings, but we have to be calm. Okay, because the other option is to escalate the situation. That's what we don't want, to escalate the situation. Why we don't want to escalate the situation? Because we have to be much more prepared. Okay, mostly to build the obstacles that we started to build. Okay, a year ago, to avoid the Hamas movement to infiltrate to Israel by the underground assets, by the subterranean. And we have a great idea how to block them. And I think we have to be patient enough till we finish building the underground fence, the obstacle, and to avoid them to use it the implication of it is for the long run, not only for the short run, okay? So we have to be patient enough and to be prepared to another escalations. We are prepared right now, okay? It doesn't matter we cannot escalate the situation, we can. But I think the strategic objective, okay, of the Israeli right now is to calm the situation. That's the reason why I totally accept and agree, okay, the decision that the government and the Prime Minister have made, okay, to calm the situation and to concentrate the efforts in the northern part and not in the southern part right now, okay? Because the real interest is to calm the situation. And I think we have the tools to calm the situation, while the feeling of the Hamas movement is quite good right now, while the Israeli government already have made the decision, although there are many complaints, to transfer, okay, the Qatar budget to Gaza Strip. And I think the second transfer will be, and even the third one, okay? And I think it's a good idea to continue to transfer the money to Gaza Strip, first because that's what they need, second, it's calm the situation over there.
Dr. Wahabi.
Well, I think that we should notice that regionally speaking, the area is facing a deep change and changes. The table is changing, and I think that the Hamas, there is a very real, thinking that they might be left behind. The Americans and the Israelis and the Arab sides, the moderate sides, are talking about the deal of the century, reconciliation between a lot of parts in the Middle East and the normalization with Israel, and we can see it's already implemented actually, and the Hamas is left behind. There are people in the strip really in bad conditions. We, the Israeli side, blame Hamas for this situation, as well as a lot of in the street, but in Gaza, but they cannot say that loudly. And everybody knows that this situation must be changed and should be changed somehow. We need the Arab sides. Of course, the Egyptians are the immediate side to be taking part in this mediation, and they are doing well, a very good job. And we also need the Qataris and maybe other sides from the Gulf that come with the money, and Turkey is not anymore involved right now in Gaza. They have different concerns. So when it comes to the Arab interaction regarding Gaza and the future of Gaza, I think it's a very good sign that we may find some solution in the near future to calm down the situation and to talk strategically about the future of Gaza, and there's a lot to tell in this regard.
Knesset member Svetlova, what do you think Israel can do to help deal with the threats on the border currently by the rioters?
Well, I think that, of course, Hamas exploits the situation, which is the greatest Israeli fear. They're not the one that invented this threat. When many people, thousands or tens of thousands, go to the fence, and right now they're just writing there, but there is, of course, a threat that if the situation will deteriorate, then they will try to break through the fence. This is something that already happened once in the north, in Lebanon, in 2012. We remember it very well. And in fact, Israel might be, very progressive in the technological sense, and has the best army definitely in the Middle East, but it's not equipped to deal with this threat of having a lot of people, unarmed people. Some of them might be armed, but the majority definitely not, approaching to the fence. I do believe that the Israeli army is doing everything possible right now to make people that go to this fence understand that they are in danger. They should not be, coming closer, yes? But again, this is something that we can do only as far as we have the minimal amount of protesters on the border. If it will be bigger, then, of course, we'll be facing a much bigger challenge, much serious challenge. I want to add something to what was previously said about the, possibility of pacifying the Hamas and, keeping it away from escalation by providing it some money from Qatar and actually going to support Hamas infrastructure that is quite on decline. Now, with the help of the Qatari money, they will be able to survive, another 3 months, another 6 months, another 8 months. I am very worried of the implications of such deeds. And I do believe that we are seeing consequences already today. We see that Hamas operates terror mechanisms in the West Bank while it's quiet on Gaza. It understands that it needs to be quiet on Gaza because it wants to keep receiving, the Qatari aid and also to, of course, have a chance to have some kind of breakthrough in Gaza. But it warms up the situation in the West Bank. And we understand that tomorrow Hamas will celebrate, by the way, its 31st anniversary of creation. They will celebrate. They will celebrate the Israeli agreement to continue working with Qatar and to continue sending the money despite the terror, despite the 480 rockets, despite everything that happened, is their kind of victory. Of course, it's not a full victory. Gaza is still in a big problem, and we know that. But I think that when we're looking at the situation in which radical Islamic movements find themselves right now, in Egypt, in Tunisia, even in Libya, Hamas is basically in the avant-garde of the political Islam, while in other places is being suppressed very harshly. In Israel, in Gaza Strip, with the help of Qatari friends and with the blessing of Israel, it raises head, and I think it gives a lot of confidence also to leaders of Hamas in West Bank that by supporting them, the more moderate side, which is the PA, will be weakened, and therefore Hamas will have a free hand at some point, also in West Bank, not only in Gaza Strip. Then we will find ourselves in a much deeper trouble than today.
Dr. Shazner, an opportunity to respond as well. Asking you, I would like to ask you how you feel about the negotiations vis-a-vis Hamas and how that legitimizes them in the eyes of the international community.
I would say that I agree with what the member of Knesset has just said, that we really do run the risk of making Hamas stronger when we have an opportunity to make them weaker. Working with the Qataris, they may have become more moderate in the aftermath of the Gulf Summit. But overall, their goals have been very consistent over the years, which is to support the Muslim Brotherhood project, and they do see Hamas as the tip of that spear. So Israel runs a risk of working with the Qataris and providing additional organization.
Colonel Eliyahu, I know you wanted to respond to what Knesset member Svetlova was saying.
Yeah, thank you very much for letting me respond. I have some disagreement, I have to be honest. First of all, I think for a long time we have a common interest between Israel and the Hamas movement, okay? Both of the sides want to calm the situation. Israel because she takes care of the population, okay? And for the first time, I think after the last operation in 2014, the Hamas movement understands as the governor of Gaza Strip that they need to take care of the population. And the economic situation in Gaza Strip deteriorated dramatically during the last 3-4 years, okay? And they have the responsibility to bring it back to the situation it was, let's say, 10 years ago, okay? When the PLO controlled the Gaza Strip. I cannot say it was blooming over there, okay? But it still was much better than in comparison to the situation right now. So both sides, okay, Israel wants to calm the situation always. She doesn't want to escalate any situation with Gaza Strip on the northern part. This is the Israeli policy, strategic Israeli policy, to calm the situation if she can. And on the other side, although the strategic objective of the Hamas movement weren't changed, okay, they want to destroy the state of Israel. There is no doubt about it. But still, okay, right now, the objectives of the Hamas, okay, changed dramatically. They want the money, they want to improve the economic situation, the domestic economic situation, okay, in order to continue to be the governor. They do not want any opposition. And they start to see, okay, the opposition comes from the population itself for the first time after a long time. We saw a few demonstrations against the Hamas government and etc. So I think when we have a common interest, okay, we have to hug the situation and to try really to implement how we get it. Second, I do not agree that there is a connection, okay, between Gaza Strip and Judea and Samaria. Okay, the Israeli policy was to distinguish between the two arenas. Okay, and I think the transfer of the money do not connect it, okay, to the carry out of many operations, fire operations in Judea and Samaria. It goes to Gaza Strip, okay? It's not from the same policy. So I do not see the connection right now, okay, according to what I understand. So in the strategic level, I think we have a common interest right now, Israel and the Hamas movement, to calm the situation, to improve. Even the Israeli government understands that in order to get silence in Gaza Strip, we need to improve the economic situation, the domestic economic situation.
Dr. Wahabi, ask you a question and then open it up to the floor as well. Israel decided, a political decision, not to go into an operation inside Gaza on November the 12th or 13th after 460 rockets were shot at Israel, after a special forces officer was killed in the line of fire. What do you think that type of message sends to the groups inside Gaza, Islamic Jihad, Hamas, everyone else, when Israel used to have a policy of deterrence and trying to deter these types of things? Is the deterioration of that deterrence in effect right now?
Well, it's a big dilemma because, as we know, strategically speaking, there should be a way out of this problem of Gaza only in the politics and some reconciliation with the Palestinian side and together with the Arab sides. And not militarily solutions, because one more round of military action in Gaza will not lead us to a real solution. So Israel would like to sustain the situation somehow in Gaza, to bring to a better life for the population. The ethical side here is very much represented also in the IDF. The way the IDF is targeting this problem, they are watching the real situation, they take care of the population really, and Israel will not use the force when it's not needed. So in this case, I think that Hamas is deterred enough not to continue sending rockets again to our cities. They know that it's not on the benefit of the organization, and they have their understanding that at the real time they should calm down the situation. Maybe later on we can see a good solution to be put on the table, and we are watching right now a lot of interactions with the Qataris and the Egyptians. Military is not the solution.
Knesset member Svetlova, I know that you're pressed for time, so I'll allow you to answer this question as well, and we'll say goodbye.
Yes, well, thank you. I believe, and this is coming from working in Gaza as a journalist for quite some years, and now, of course, sitting in the Committee for Foreign Affairs and Defense, visiting the crossing points that connect Israel with Gaza Strip. I do believe that until Hamas is there ruling Gaza Strip, there will be no economic improvement. There can be no economic improvement. Hamas will stay Hamas. It says clearly so that it has no intention to, stop, its terrorist activity, whether in Gaza Strip or in West Bank. And we know that every dollar that comes inside Gaza, this is we know from the army and the security agencies heads, from each dollar, at least a third of it goes to Hamas military objectives. So in this case, how can we talk about any restructure of Gaza Strip, any serious humanitarian aid that will come there, and serious opportunities, for example, to having commercial zones on the border between Gaza and Israel. I believe that it will be impossible until we will find a non-military solution for changing the regime in Gaza Strip. This is unfortunately something that is not being even considered right now in Israel, and against threats, non-military solution, not another military operation that will be useless and that will be ending with the same thing. But until Hamas is there, everything that we do, unfortunately, it will be counterproductive.
Thank you so much for joining us, Knesset member Svetlova, and we wish you well and continued success. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Knesset member Svetlova joining us on our roundtable. We're going to head back over to Washington here for Dr. Jonathan Shasner. We're going to ask him a quick question. I think he may be off the line, though, actually. Dr. Shasner? No, he's not there. We're going to have to try to get him back on the line. But we will continue onwards and upwards as we continue onward here. I will ask both of our former IDF officers here now. Is Israel able to handle a two-front war? Is that the reason that they didn't go into Gaza, because they need to focus on the north?
Well, Israel is capable enough to really deal with the two fronts. It's part of the strategy of the IDF when it comes to the operational understanding and doctrine. There's no doubt about it. It was proved also in the past, and we know we have taken a lot of lessons from history. But the way the IDF targeted the question of Gaza is not really refers to this kind of dilemma. Gaza should be sustained. Yes, Israel is looking to the north. The north is the main problem of the Israeli politics and for the government and the Israeli people, and also for the region. The Iranian foothold in Syria, their existence, it's a big question. It's on the table also of the Russian, Lebanese, and the Syrian regime, as well as the Arab states that they see that Iran is threatening right now their national security. So Gaza is the little problem, and regionally speaking, Hamas as a Sunni group should be part of the Sunni Arab side that is right now coming to a very real process of normalization with Israel. It's the natural side of the Hamas side, as part of the brotherhoods as well. Where the Iranian Hamas connections are really not for the strategic benefit of the Palestinians and, of course, of Hamas. So Israel would like to contain somehow the situation in Gaza, not to open a new round of action till maybe we'll see this process is taking place.
Colonel Eliyahu, same question to you. Is Israel able and capable of fighting two-front war right now, if that were to be the case, on Gaza border and the northern border vis-a-vis Hezbollah, where we know Iran is also entrenched? And I think the biggest problem between a potential two-front war is the fact that both sides, the southern border and the northern border, will be flooded with rockets into all of the major cities of Israel at that point. How does Israel contend with that? Are they capable? Are they able to?
First of all, Israel is covered by the range of the rockets from Gaza Strip, and the range of the rockets from the northern part through Hezbollah covers all Israel. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you open two fronts or only one front. Okay, if it's from the northern part, all the rockets and the missiles, by the way, not only rockets and missiles from the northern part covers all the state of Israel, and from the southern part it covers most of Israel. So it doesn't matter. This is not the point if it covers or not. It all is under the threat of the rockets from both sides. That's first. Second, the scenario of two fronts raised in the military few years ago. It was raised a few years ago because we understand that the military, the IDF understood that the one who orchestrate all those arenas those are the Iranians, okay? And they have many proxies. And what they've done during the last few years, they start to develop more and more relationship with the Hamas because they understand the implication of if they want to open two fronts, okay, they need the Hamas with them, okay? That's the reason why during the last few years they budget the Hamas. Although the Hamas movement strategic policy was to be actually isolated and independent and not be rely on the Iranian budget and the Iranian ammunition, okay? That's the reason why, by the way, they build their own military industry in Gaza Strip by their own and not rely on the smuggling of ammunition from the Iranians through Egypt to Gaza Strip. So, yes, the scenario still exists, and I'm quite sure that the IDF prepared himself to the two fronts. If you ask me if it's likely, okay, to open two states, I'm not sure that Hamas will join, okay, the two front, any escalation with the northern part immediately. I think they will consider the implication, okay, for the short run and the long run, and they take action only if they understand that it can improve, okay, right now the situation in Gaza Strip.
I believe we have Dr. Shazner back online. Dr. Shazner? Oh, no, we lost him again. We will try to get that back going on. We only have a few more minutes anyway, but we will continue to ask both of our colonels here in studio a couple of interesting questions that I think need to sum up the situation in Gaza right now. If Israel were to undertake a strategic operation in Gaza, something that we haven't seen done since 2014, what type of goal would the IDF have to set for it to be considered a victory? Because what we've seen in the past is we have seen bombastic announcements by some of our politicians saying we will destroy Hamas, we will get rid of Hamas, we will give them a blow that they can never recover from. But we also know that, as mentioned here by all of our different panelists, that Hamas and Israel have a strategic interest to keep things quiet. We also know that Israel looks a little bit ahead and says who will be ruling the place once Hamas is out of Gaza. So they haven't been able to put real goals on the ground and achieve them because we haven't heard what those real goals are. In your guys' opinion, what should be a goal set by the IDF if they were to go into a future operation that Israel could accomplish that goal, get out, and say, we've accomplished what we needed to do?
Well, I think that both sides know that the military option should be restricted, and the political dimension is the real question here, and it's again on the table. We could see that Hamas in this round of sending people, unarmed people to the fence, there's a somehow declaration that we are not going again to the rounds of the past, sending rockets to the Israeli cities. They want maybe something different. They understand that they are the weak side, and they do not want IDF to be acting again in order to prove that he is stronger. And it's a new step. It's a new step that Hamas is sending to Israel. They did not recognize Israel as a state, but indirectly there is this interaction through the mediation of the Arab states, and they are telling the Israeli side, we want to move forward with not doing again the military round of the past. Now, what we are going to see, maybe, is that the IDF will try by all means, to deter Hamas, to send real messages to Hamas, not to join the Iranian side, not to put us again in this front where we are not really, as IDF, do not intend right now to act in Gaza. Calm down, and maybe let's try to implement some of the items that we hear all about in the deal of the century. There is a big civil question in Gaza, the water, the power station, maybe the port. Okay, it's a lot of humanitarian and economic needs of the Gaza Strip. It's must be put again on the table, and Hamas knows that.
Colonel Eliyahu.
First of all, I think the next round in Gaza Strip needs to be much more powerful. Okay, because the Hamas movement is a terror organization, okay? It's a movement, but it's first of all terror organization, and they use power against our population, against innocent citizens. And what they really understand is using power. I think in the last round we succeeded to use much more power in comparison to the past, okay? And I think in the next round, okay, we have to use much more power in order, okay, to bring back and to increase the deterrence, the Israeli deterrence towards the Hamas movement. It means that we have to use the airstrike as well as the maneuver. What is the operational objective? The operational objective is to counter their subterranean infrastructure, okay? Those for the offense and those are for defense, okay? They have their own, okay? Those that penetrate to Israel and those that are for the defending against our maneuver, our forces. So in the operational side, I think we have to counter, okay, and to destroy the subterranean infrastructure of the Hamas. In the strategic level, so first I said to increase, okay, and to strengthen our deterrence. Second, to create awareness of the Hamas that the only solution for the domestic problem of the Hamas in Gaza Strip coming from Israel, okay, and using of power, this is not the solution, okay. Those are the strategic objectives.
Please.
I think that the more we use force, we get to understand that it's not the direction. And I think that there's a deep understanding in Israel that the situation should be only sustained because we need Hamas to be strong enough to govern this strip and to be weak enough to be deterred. This is the balancing maybe theory of Gaza. Now, I don't think that Hamas in the foreseeable future is going to be removed. The grassroots in Gaza are green. People tend much more to accept their ideology, their theology, and they are going to be ruling this place. The alternative of Hamas in Gaza Strip might be much more radical than Hamas. So Hamas is the moderate side that actually can be right now ruling the strip, and we prefer this side. Now, when it comes to the Israeli politics, Israel is not only one voice. In the Israeli political system, there is the right wing that somehow also has a lot of benefit from this Hamas behavior, because the split in the Palestinian politics between the PA and Gaza of the radical Islam is also stopping any process that might be dividing the country, and the Israeli right wing do not really to step anymore towards this direction and to blame the Palestinians. And in this sense, I think that Hamas is doing a very good job for the right wing politics in Israel. And as it has been said before, there are some politicians in Israel that still hope that somehow Hamas can be removed. I cannot see that as a real step in the future.
When we look at the future, as you guys both mentioned right now, how does the IDF need to operate from an intelligence standpoint when it comes to Gaza? Because both of you served in the intelligence corps in the IDF, and I think that's something that's very important to look at specifically right now because of what happened on November the 12th. It was a special forces unit entered. From all accounts, it was an intelligence gathering operation to the best of our knowledge that has been made public. And it went wrong. And then we saw Hamas trying to do what has been called crowdsourcing intelligence, trying to get really what the Israeli public involved in naming the different soldiers and providing Hamas with some sort of intelligence on the operation. What type of intelligence gathering does Israel need to do on obviously a basic level that we can't get into details on an operational level?
In any organizations, there is, mostly military one, there is intelligence apparatuses, and even the Hamas has their own intelligence apparatuses, okay, as well as us. I think the intelligence picture is quite good, and when we sit with the decision maker, we can build the right picture of the Hamas in Gaza Strip, okay, even in the last operation, okay, regarding the tunnels, okay. It was quite clear, okay, picture about what are the tunnels that penetrate to Israel, and those are not. So everything in Israel, okay, is based on intelligence, and I think we supply the decision makers the right decision, okay, the right information, okay, and the right estimation, okay, as a base for their own decision making process. So it always nice to talk about intelligence because it's you always want more intelligence, okay. But I think this is something regarding the intelligence community of Israel and not related to the social media or to the public to discuss what we really need, okay, which kind of intelligence we really need to improve our capabilities in Gaza Strip. This is something clandestine that inside the intelligence community and inside the military and the security Ministry of Defense.
Well, I think the question of the intelligence regarding Gaza is somehow might be understood. You know, it's a very small place, highly populated, under a naval siege, close from the sea, and also under the blockade. They use their channels, and there is a lot of interactions of transfer of knowledge with Hezbollah and with Iran. Not to mention the money and the ammunition that they are pushing to this place. The Iranian side is the main side that is trying somehow to militarize this strip for their benefit. And who's going to pay this price is, of course, the Palestinian population. And they know that, but they are weak enough to stand in front of Hamas and to try to deal with this kind of internal threat. So Israel is trying to hold somehow sustainability in this strip. There are a lot of ways how to gather information. Of course, there is a lot of interactions, maybe more in the past than today. But I think that in this sense, I think that Gaza is quite well covered by the Israeli intelligence services. And the way Israel would like to use or not use the information refers to the doctrine, the military doctrine, the military strategy.
And just one quick follow-up before we go to our final question of the day. I wanted to just quickly follow up. How should the IDF or Israel as a whole combat what Hamas is trying to do in gathering intelligence versus Israel, and specifically with this crowdsourcing scenario, as we saw a rare moment when the IDF came out and just asked the public, do not publish anything on WhatsApp, do not spread what Hamas is publishing. What does Israel, as a government or as a military, need to do to combat this particular attempt to gather intelligence?
I think it mostly, as I said before, even the Hamas has their own military, military intelligence apparatuses, okay, and they try to gather more and more information about Israel, and of course any specific operation, mostly those that penetrate to Gaza Strip. But I think it comes mostly from the social media. They try to get much more information through the social media, and the solution is to be aware. Our intel community and our forces needs to be aware of any link, any connection with any entity, okay, that are not known to them. If the awareness will be high, I think they won't be able, okay, to gather the information they really know. They understand the vulnerability, okay, of the citizens and the vulnerability of some of them, maybe commanders or soldiers, okay, of being exposing to the social media, okay, and they try to use that, okay, to get more information. So if you create awareness, okay, you blame them, you can block them from getting the information they want, to gather the information they want.
Well, we are democracy. Israel is democracy, and of course, social media, new media, is well used by Israelis everywhere, and it's a very good place for gathering information for everybody, also in the business, competitions. So of course, when it comes to military intelligence, Israel is aware very much that there are a lot of targets to be hidden, And I think that the Israeli population is really good, and it's a struggling community and living under this ongoing process. And there is a really very deep understanding in the Israeli society that things should be under restriction. Although we are a democracy, and I think that it's only very little places where IDF or Israel turns to its society and to ask them to hide some kinds of information. By and large, we know that in this place, in this terrain, there is the psychological warfare that is also taking place between Hamas, and Israel, as well as Hezbollah against vis-a-vis Israel. And of course, when it comes to the military, the deception also is a very big dimension that the new media and this indirect interaction between you and your opponent system is also taking place.
So heading into our final question now of our wonderful discussion here about the Gaza security situation, lay out a few facts that seem to be obvious to everyone in the world leading into our final question. One of those being that we know Hamas is a terrorist organization that holds quite a few rockets and missiles to aim at Israel. We know that they have subterranean tunnels that they would like to infiltrate Israel with. We know that Israel has the Iron Dome. We know Israel has missile defenses. We understand that Israel's IDF is much stronger than anything that there is in Gaza, and if it wanted and got the order, could go in and take over and destroy if need be. These are basic facts that most everyone understands and knows about the security situation there. What is the Israeli public and the world at large missing in the puzzle, in the piece about the security situation in Gaza? What do we not know that we need to know to have a better understanding of what is going on the southern border of Israel?
I think that everybody knows that strategically speaking, and here's the main issue, the military action, one more round of action is not going to solve the problem or to improve the situation. Everybody knows that. I think that there is a very deep understanding in Israel that Hamas is going to stay there and to be there at least for maybe 1 decade, maybe more. So this direction of thinking, how militarily we are going to change the situation or sustain or change the reality in the south, is not the real direction. I think that there is a very deep understanding in the political system as well as in the IDF, and you can examine how IDF has reacted to the new reality in the south. They all know that only the political strategic maybe steps can change the situation, and everybody will hold the fire. And we can bring some kind of balancing where the economic dimension is going to be again something that we should take into account. I think that Israel is gaining very real points in the international politics because she holds the fire, and this maybe is going to be somehow be put again as a real plan, and we feel that there is some plan, there is interaction between Israel and the Arab sides regarding Gaza, and I think that the Arab moderate side really know that Israel is not looking forward to work militarily in Gaza.
A few comments. First of all, fighting against terror today, it's not an easy combat, and we have to be aware of it. Part of it because the enemy is covered themselves by the civilians, and this is a clandestine organization. Actually, you cannot see them when you raise the binoculars. Okay, they are under cover and leave the positions along the border. This is not the infrastructure of the Hamas movement in Gaza Strip, okay? And fighting against terror mostly today is a psychological warfare. And the way I believe, the way we behave and the way we criticize, okay, our decision makers, and we criticize ourselves domestically, okay, internally. This is something that play to the enemy's ends and not to our ends. And we have to be aware that anything we do, okay, they use it against us. So we have to be patient enough. We have to understand it takes time to bring the solution, and I totally agree with my friend that it's not a military solution. It's a political solution. The alternative of political solution in Gaza Strip, okay, is to destroy Gaza Strip or to control all Gaza Strip. It means a full maneuver in all Gaza Strip, and it costs a lot. It costs a lot, and this is something I do not believe we need. So we have to engage with the other side, although it's a terror organization, okay, by the mediator of the Qataris or the Egyptians, it doesn't matter, but we have to engage with them and to bring at least, okay, at least a ceasefire for few years ahead, to calm the situation for the first, and I think we have the option right now on the table.
In Arabic, they call it a hunda. Exactly. So looking at that, is that a real possibility in your guys' opinion that we could have a long-lasting ceasefire? Obviously, peace is not necessarily possible when the other side vows the destruction of the other side, but a long-lasting ceasefire, as you just mentioned.
Well, I don't believe in agreements in this sense. I believe in reality. There should be somehow some connection between the declared agreement or items in this agreement and the reality on the ground. Only correlation between those sides, the formal agreement, the signed agreement, and the reality on the ground that the other side will accept, really, not because he has to, but that it's imposed on him. It's really, it's part of his interest to accept this kind of agreement. Only this correlation can bring upon this kind of sustainability and stability for several years. I think that it can be achieved if we really care for the common ground of interest between Israel and the Gaza Strip, of Hamas as a government. They are really afraid that they might be losing force in Gaza, not because the street is strong enough to destroy them, because the governability is very important to them, and they are weak right now economically to bring some kind of hope. That's why they are sending people to the fence and not the military people, unarmed and civilians. It's a big message to us. And the day we find this common ground of interest, together with the Arab side, the moderate side, maybe it's the new formula that will bring some kind of hope and sustainability for the several coming years, and maybe later on will be part of the deal of the century or something else.
Colonel Eliyahu, final words.
I really believe we can achieve a ceasefire for the next few years, okay? There are a few elements that came together, gathered together right now, okay? And there are a few interests that gathers together right now. Those are the Gulf countries, this is Egypt, this is the Gaza Strip, and this is Israel. All the players in the game right now want to ceasefire, only except the PLO, And this is not the stronger player on the game, okay? He is not the stronger player on the game. So we can force him, okay, to get any solution we achieved in Gaza Strip. So I'm quite optimistic about the option of achieving the ceasefire for the next few years.
I'd like to thank all of our panelists, Dr. Anan Wahabi, ICT Research Fellow and Colonel Reserves in the IDF, Colonel Reserves Avi Eliyahu, an ICT Associate, member of Knesset Svetlova from the Zionist Union, and Dr. Jonathan Chasner, Senior Vice President from the FDD in Washington. This has been an enlightening conversation, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us here in studio. Thank you to both of our guests for joining us over the telephone, and we'd like to thank all of our viewers on Facebook Live, and of course all of our listeners on all the different platforms. We will be back with more special episodes of Counter-Terrorism today, and this is once again a very enlightening conversation, and we thank all of our panelists. This has been Counter-Terrorism Today.
Counter-Terrorism